Illinois on the record, candidates are looking to keep the momentum after Iowa. We look ahead to New Hampshire. Plus, covering the uninsured, what it means if you missed the Obamacare enrollment deadline. And addressing the deficit, what the comptroller is saying about the skyrocketing shortfall.
Now, from your local election headquarters, this is Central Illinois on the record.
Welcome to Central Illinois on the record. I'm Paul Cicchini. The state's medical marijuana industry is continuing to run into obstacles. Governor Rauner rejected 8 potential qualifying conditions that could be treated with cannabis. As CIOTR's Hannah Hilliard explains, it's left program supporters disappointed.
Just last week, medical marijuana advocates had a sense of hope, pleading with Governor Bruce Rauner.
We're not asking the governor to take ownership of this program. We realize that it predates him, but just don't strangle it. Let it grow.
But this week, the mood shifted as Rauner rejects conditions like PTSD, autism, and chronic pain from qualifying for medical marijuana.
I'm just, devastated for patients in this state.
There are about 4,000 approved cannabis patients in the state right now, but those in the industry say that's not enough.
We've had many appointments with people that don't qualify for the program, and I leave here every day kind of saddened by that.
Low patient numbers is also bad for business.
I've spoken with many dispensary owners across the state, and some of them are seeing 2 or 3 people a day. Well, that doesn't keep your doors open.
Medical marijuana educator Regina Nelson says they'll keep pushing until everyone they say needs cannabis has access to cannabis.
There's no good reasons that these conditions were denied by the governor other than just strictly political reasons.
Now, we reached out to the Public Health Department, which says it would be premature to add conditions. Quote, the state has not had the opportunity to evaluate the benefits and costs of the pilot program or determine areas for improvement or even whether to extend the program beyond its pilot period. But sales of medical marijuana are up as more dispensaries opened across the state. Patients purchased more than $1 million in marijuana last month. There are only about 3,000 patients using cannabis, while there are more than 4,000 approved to legally purchase the medicine. The sales report says growers paid roughly $66,000 in taxes in January. The state's chief financial officer stresses the need to end the budget impasse during a stop Wednesday in the River City.
We must stop our financial bleeding and begin the healing.
Comptroller Leslie Munger says at this pace, Illinois is digging deeper into debt, and she believes if a budget isn't passed soon, the state will increase its deficit by $6.2 billion. That's on top of billions of dollars of debt the state already has accrued.
It will be difficult within a year to get fully out of all the debt that we have built up. Over 5 years, I think it's very doable. Actually, probably even less than that if we did the right things.
Munger says passing pension reform legislation would mean about $1 billion in savings. Governor Rauner using his executive power to try and increase hiring. Rauner has directed the Department of Commerce to work with the Illinois Business and Economic Development Corporation. He's hopeful this will jumpstart the economy, attract businesses, and create jobs. According to a statement from the governor's office, the new corporation will, quote, maintain strict standards of transparency. Well, following closures and cuts, Lutheran Social Services of Illinois says help for at-risk kids and families in Peoria, Tazewell, and Woodford counties will remain unaffected. LSSI says its office in West Peoria provides services to 225 families through 3 programs: foster care, Intact Family Services, which provides resources to parents reported for suspected abuse or neglect, and adoption preservation. Last month, LSSI announced the state's lack of a budget was forcing it to cut 30 programs and 750 positions, which would impact nearly 5,000 people. Well, the deadline to sign up during open enrollment for the Affordable Care Act was 1 week ago. But as CIOTR's Shane Gustafson explains, if you missed it, there are ways to get into the marketplace.
Paying for health insurance can be a scary situation for some.
A lot of times patients just don't know what options they have. So a lot of times they're very confused.
A lot of them are, especially after the January 31st deadline. That's when penalties and fines start to kick in.
If they don't have health care, it's going to be a $695 fine per adult and $347.50 for every child you have.
Fines that are taken from your income tax return. They add up each month.
We got a couple calls that said, hey, I forgot, but unless they pre-qualify for one of those reasons, really they're kind of out of luck.
But you're only out of luck unless you've had a life-changing event. A marriage, a divorce, or even having a baby can be factors that get you back into the marketplace.
There's absolutely different options that we can look into for patients.
Beth Burge works at Unity Point Methodist Hospital. Her job is to find those options and make getting treatment a possibility.
That's where our hospital does offer financial assistance to those patients.
Payment plans are just one way to help make health care affordable. There's also short-term plans available.
The idea is that they get health insurance before they need it, and they're paying into it and only using it when they need it.
Hospital staff says the price tag shouldn't determine the type of care.
Treatment should never be stopped just because you're worried about the bill. You need to come in and we can find some ways to help you.
According to U.S. News & World Reports, 11.6 million people had signed up for or renewed a health insurance plan through the state and federal exchanges through January 29th. Open enrollment starts again on November 1st. The state fire marshal is warning people in Illinois about the dangers of hoverboards. The self-balancing scooters have caught fire while charging and during use. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is investigating more than 40 fires in 19 states, including Illinois. Now, if you have a hoverboard, you're encouraged to follow the manufacturer's instructions for charging that battery. Well, the spread of Zika virus is prompting travel advisories and health alerts. Now the McLean County Health Department is urging people to think twice before leaving the country. Pregnant women are being told to avoid countries with reported Zika outbreaks. The health department says although most people won't experience severe problems, it's better to err on the side of caution.
At this point, it's being transmitted from mosquito bite to person. So I think it's something we all need to be aware of and keep an eye on. But at this point, I don't think we should get too worked up over it.
The health department says if you do plan to travel where there is a Zika virus outbreak, you can protect yourself by wearing long sleeves and using bug sprays with DEET. Well, the city of Peoria is in a good place, according to its mayor. Jim Ardis delivered his annual State of the City address to a crowd of 600 Wednesday at the Civic Center. The mayor was optimistic as he discussed new businesses coming to the Warehouse District, the city passing a balanced budget, and expanding the residential officer program. But the River City has its challenges, including with Caterpillar, which laid off more than 300 local employees just over a week ago. The mayor's speech focused on the new headquarters being built downtown. And while there's no timeline for the construction, Mayor Ardis says he's been assured it will happen.
As soon as this economy starts to show some signs of life, that we'll get more definitive dates.
The mayor also spoke about continuing to build the relationship between the city and District 150, saying he was encouraged by the recent hiring of a permanent superintendent. All right, early voting is underway in McLean County, and county election leaders were concerned that start date might have to be delayed because of ongoing objections about presidential candidates. Clerk Kathy Michael says the objections were pulled in time and voting is underway at the Government Center. Now, Michael says she believes the county will see a bigger turnout than usual this year. She encourages people to vote early so voting centers aren't too crowded come Election Day.
It's an advantage if you don't want to wait in line on Election Day, or if you're afraid of bad weather, because who knows what's going to happen in Illinois. You're all set to vote on Election Day and it snows 3 feet.
The Government Center will be open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Other early voting sites will open in the next few weeks. Early voting in Peoria County begins on Tuesday. Well, still ahead, Republicans and Democrats debate what was said before the First in the Nation primary. But first, a look back at Iowa, how candidates are looking to use their momentum in New Hampshire. The Iowa caucuses are in the past, and now the Republican and Democratic presidential candidates are in New Hampshire ahead of Tuesday's primary in the Granite State. Steve Nannis has a look at the next front in the race for the White House.
After months of campaigning in Iowa,
it's going to be so important for Iowa.
Here in Iowa,
God bless the great state of Iowa.
The candidates have moved on to New Hampshire.
Right here in New Hampshire.
I need your vote here in New Hampshire.
It is up to New Hampshire voters to weigh in.
Ted Cruz may have bested fellow Republican candidates Donald Trump and Marco Rubio in Monday's caucuses.
So what a victory.
But in New Hampshire, Trump leads in the latest polls, and Rubio is expected to be a formidable challenger.
We need to unify the conservative movement and the Republican Party. I can do that better than anyone that's running. We need to grow it. I can do that better than anyone who's running. And we need to beat Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Hillary Clinton won the Iowa caucuses over her Democratic challenger Bernie Sanders by a razor-thin margin.
I am so thrilled that I'm coming to New Hampshire after winning Iowa.
And Sanders, a senator from nearby Vermont, is well positioned to win Tuesday's contest, which could make this a prolonged primary battle.
we're going to fight really hard in New Hampshire, and then we're going to Nevada, and then we're going to South Carolina. We look forward to doing well around the country.
With the first contest in the books, the 2016 hopefuls are wasting no time courting voters in the next campaign battleground, as a win in the Granite State could swing the momentum once again. I'm Steve Nannis reporting.
Still to come, a temporary train crossing lays the track for the future. What leaders in Normal are saying about the change. But up next, a thinning Republican field meets to debate one more time before New Hampshire's primary. What they said to try and sway the voters.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
Former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum is endorsing Marco Rubio after ending his White House run. He made both announcements Wednesday during a Fox News interview. Santorum won the 2012 Iowa caucuses, but he was unable to capture any momentum this year, despite extensive barnstorming efforts in Iowa. Rand Paul also out of the race. Paul discussed the matter with staff on Wednesday morning and sent a statement confirming the decision to drop out. The freshman senator was once viewed as a formidable presidential contender. Paul, a Kentucky Republican, is expected to now place his focus squarely on his Senate re-election bid. And Mike Huckabee calls it quits, suspending his campaign Monday night. Huckabee surprised many by winning the Iowa GOP caucuses back in 2008 and proving to be a strong candidate against eventual nominee John McCain. He struggled to stay on the main stage in the Republican debates and failed to rally the support he garnered 8 years ago. Well, the thinning Republican field took the debate stage Saturday night, looking to collect support before voters head to the polls for the first-in-the-nation primary Tuesday in New Hampshire. While 8 candidates remain in the race, only 7 took the stage. Carly Fiorina was left out.
The gloves were off in New Hampshire Saturday. Donald Trump doubled down on his controversial positions.
I hit immigration. I hit it very hard. I talked about Muslims. We have a problem. Nobody else wanted to mention the problem.
Ted Cruz took aim at the president.
This is a president who, in the wake of Paris and the wake of San Bernardino, will not even use the words radical Islamic terrorism, much less focus on defeating the enemy.
Candidates slammed the Affordable Care Act.
You have to replace it with something that makes sense. It doesn't make sense.
They talked about North Korea's missile launch claims.
The next president of the United States is going to have to get the United States back in the game, and if a preemptive strike is necessary to keep us safe, then we should do it.
That's what I worry about the most, frankly, is non-state actors, people who don't have a uniform, people who don't have a country.
There were heated exchanges. Here's Marco Rubio and Chris Christie.
It's a fine job. I'm glad you ran for it, but it does not prepare you for President of the United States.
Chris, your state got hit by a massive snowstorm 2 weeks ago. You didn't even want to go back. They had to shame you into going back. And then you stayed there for 36 hours, and then you left and came back to campaign.
Donald Trump got booed as well during an exchange with Jeb Bush.
How tough is it to take property from an elderly woman?
Let me talk. Quiet.
How tough is it?
A lot of times.
In just a few days, we'll find out which candidate made the most compelling case to New Hampshire voters. I'm Kim Hutcherson reporting.
Still ahead, helping minority businesses, how a leader in central Illinois is stepping up. But first, Democrats debate a look at what happened when Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton went one-on-one.
You're watching Central Illinois on the record.
Democratic presidential candidate Martin O'Malley calls it quits. The former Maryland governor suspended his campaign at his caucus party in Des Moines, Iowa on Monday. The news comes after O'Malley did not register support in Iowa caucus results. O'Malley entered the race on May 30th, but never cracked double digits in national polls and struggled to gain traction. Well, Hillary Clinton goes one-on-one Thursday night with Senator Bernie Sanders, their first debate since the Iowa caucuses, and their last before Tuesday's First in the Nation primary in New Hampshire. Here are the highlights from their showdown in the Granite State.
I'm not making promises that I cannot keep.
Hillary Clinton took a clear swipe at Bernie Sanders in a debate that was passionate and at times combative.
The Republicans want to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I want to improve it. I want to build on it, get the cost down, get prescription drug costs down. Senator Sanders wants us to start all over again.
I am on the Health Education Labor Committee. That committee wrote the Affordable Care Act. The idea that I would dismantle health care in America while we're waiting to pass a Medicare for all is just not accurate.
Clinton accused Sanders of smearing her progressive credentials.
I really don't think these kinds of attacks by insinuation are worthy of you. And enough is enough. If you've got something to say, say it.
I mean, instead of arguing about definitions, let's talk about what we should do.
But Sanders didn't back down.
I am very proud to be the only candidate up here who does not have a super PAC, who is not raising huge sums of money from Wall Street or special interests. In my view, the business model of Wall Street is fraud.
Clinton trying to tout experience, also attempting to distance herself from Wall Street's big money.
I have a record, I have stood firm, and I will be the person who prevents them from ever wrecking the economy again.
I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
A huge investment aimed at improving your water, what it means for several spots in central Illinois. But first, building minority-owned businesses, how a city leader in central Illinois is stepping up to the challenge. Life changed 1 year ago last week for former Congressman Aaron Schock. The Washington Post wrote an article and published these photos of Schock's Downton Abbey-inspired office decor. They sparked an investigation into Schock's spending, eventually leading the former congressman to resign from office. The Republican has since turned in over 10,000 financial records to the federal government as a grand jury continues to investigate potential wrongdoing. Well, the Normal Town Council approves a temporary crossing for Uptown Station. The crossing will allow Amtrak riders to cross from one side of the tracks to the other. It's part of the plan to eventually build an underpass at the tracks. That's years away, but this temporary crossing will help with passenger flow. Eventually, the plan is to connect the north and south ends of Uptown, improving access for everyone.
For the Uptown to thrive, those two parts of Uptown have to be connected and have good access across the tracks for not only rail passengers, for people who want to walk, they want to drag their bicycles.
The council also approved a $1.5 million contract with Stark Excavating Incorporated for road improvement work on Rabb Road between Normal Community High School and Towanda Barnes Road. Illinois American Water is making a big investment to improve your water. The utility is spending $8 million in the Peoria district. That includes 10 miles of new piping in Peoria, West Peoria, and Bartonville. There are 44 locations total. Many of the existing pipes are 50 to 80 years old, and they leak. Engineers say the goal is staying ahead and fixing problems before they get too big.
These mains break frequently, so the people who live around these areas, they know the main is there. So when we're done, they won't know it's there.
Construction will start in mid-March with an expected end date in mid-August. There's a map of the locations on our website, ciproud.com. Minority business owners in Peoria say it's not easy getting off the ground. Now, a councilwoman in Peoria is working to provide more opportunities locally and across the state. WMBD's Eugene Daniel has more on how Denise Moore is creating a pipeline for people who dream of one day being their own boss.
Where we started from, you would be amazed at what the transformation this place took on.
Yeah, there's some pride there.
Greg and Joanne Young opened Popcorn Heaven a few months ago. They say business is popping, but it's not easy for minorities to start their own business.
Peoria is not doesn't have a lot of different avenues that minorities can go through.
Growing your own, that's what it's about, growing your own.
Councilwoman Denise Moore wants to turn things around. She was shocked when the 2013 census used an asterisk for local minority businesses because so few existed.
There's a problem with that. We do have businesses here, but the Development Center will help those businesses to become recognized, to get on the map. So when someone's out counting, they see that business that's there.
Her passion to develop minority ownership landed her this old shop, which she hopes will be the hub for local entrepreneurs.
If your corporation has a diversity goal for contractors and vendors, then, and you tell me that you are having difficulty finding minority vendors, this is a location that will be providing you a free list of those minority vendors.
The initiative will provide mentorship, financing, and education to sustain a business. Her efforts caught the eyes of the governor, who recently tapped her to serve on an initiative specifically designed to support minority businesses across the state.
We hope to turn out between 10 and 15 business owners, actually launch them out into the environment, their own store, their own business, have them funded, have them up and operational.
The Development Center will serve women, veterans, and ethnic minorities. Moore says an increase in minority-owned businesses isn't just good for the economy, but will do even more for the future of the River City.
We're trying to make a big impact in the community, not just the community of people who are living and working today, but on the children that will grow up on the south side of Peoria and see that there was an organization that tried to make a difference economically in this community.
Moore says parts of the initiative will get started in about a week. She says many local businesses and people from the community are lending resources to help launch the project, but there's much more to be done. Finally, the VP is on FB. Vice President Joe Biden made history as the first vice president to have a Facebook page. Biden posted some pictures on his page Thursday, including the day he was sworn in as vice president. Biden's first Facebook post comes on World Cancer Day. The cause is near to Biden's heart after his son, Beau Biden, died of brain cancer in May last year. President Obama tapped Biden to lead a new task force designated to end cancer. The vice president says he'd like the page to, quote, be a place to discuss issues that matter. President Obama joined Facebook back in November. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Central Illinois on the Record. Of course, you can stay in touch with us by using social media. Connect with WMBD and me on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag CIOTR, and we will see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of WMBD, WYZZ, or Nexstar Broadcasting Group.